Travelers, what are some of the creepiest and scariest experience you've had abroad? I was traveling in Nicaragua several years ago when I got lost and ended up having to take a taxi at 9:30 p.m. back to my hostel. When the taxi pulled up to the curb, the taxi driver locked the taxi doors and told me that I had misunderstood the fare. He claimed I owed him $100, which was several times more than what we had agreed upon. I tried to pry the doors open from the inside but was completely trapped. Thankfully, he let me out of the taxi after taking all the money I had on me. The hostel workers told me I was incredibly lucky. A few days earlier, a taxi driver had kidnapped another young female, assaulted her, then dumped her barely conscious body in a field outside town, thinking that she was dead. A few local school children found her on their way to school in the morning. Oh my gosh! Okay, well, note to self, avoid the taxis in Nicaragua. Don't berate them. It's not New York. You don't go, hey, I'm walking here! Sounds like if you want to keep walking, dude, you move the other direction. Holy crap. Next story. On a train in Athens traveling alone, a group of men tried to push me off the train with them at the stop. 3 women started yelling at them and pulled me back. It happened so fast. I didn't know until the one that spoke English explained they were trying to take me. They made sure I made it back to the hostel and told me not to wear what I was wearing, shorts and a tank, while alone. Next story. In India, our bus rounded a corner in the mountains, and another bus was on the other side of the curve. Both buses skid to a stop about 1 foot from one another. Both drivers started laughing and poking fun at each other. We saw a bus from the 80s that fell down the mountain about 15 minutes later. Yeah, super intense. Next story. 1992, I was walking up the stairs to the ticket booths in the Warsaw, Poland, Central train station. All of a sudden, this dude is falling down the stairs, coming to a rest a few stairs above where I was standing. Dude had a long screwdriver sticking out of his abdomen. Next story. Hiking in Peru. Told to watch our gear as locals, and apparently foxes, might make off with items left around the campsite. So we made sure to clean the campsite extra well, packing all our gear in the tent and inside the fly. And after a long day hiking, off to bed we went. Middle of the night, our tent starts shaking like crazy. I wake up freaking out, thinking we were getting robbed. I started yelling and screaming. Part of the tent pushes in real far. I managed to get outside and I start swinging, and I come face to face with a cow that had wandered into the tent, into the ropes, and got startled. Pretty lucky that it didn't step down into the tent though and hit us. Next story. We went on a family trip to Croatia, and on our way to the beach we pulled over to the side of a road for a pee break. So we opened the car door, and like always our dog jumps out first. He ran into the field right next to the street. Then suddenly my mother starts screaming the name of our dog because 10 meters away from our car was a sign that said, "Stay away, old minefield." Thank God, nothing happened. Next story. Got pickpocketed by a group of 3 at the Paris metro. I'm paranoid of losing my wallet, always, so I'm checking myself all the time. When I realized it was missing, I made a bigger scene than the pickpockets were making. They shoved me into their friend and were trying to convince people that I knocked him down. I stopped the train from leaving the station. One of the other passengers left to get conductor and the security. I guess that didn't sit well with the pickpockets, so they gave me back my wallet and took off running. Next story. I was in Barbados, walking on a main road back to where I was sleeping, not far from a main beach on the south side. It was late and it was dark. I came across this man carrying a white bucket. Hi, I'm Bush. Bush has plants in the bucket. He also has a machete. Do you have any food for me? Some rice? I tell him I do not have any food, but that I do have some weed I could share. I had bought some from a bunch of kids at the beach the night before. Follow me, says Bush. So I follow this man with a machete off the road into an empty parking lot. At the back of the lot is a back alley heading to the side. We take this alley. A man is sitting, sleeping on a wall. A few broken down cars are parked. It's a dead end. I was wondering earlier whether all this was a good idea, and my mind was beginning to form an opinion along the lines of, no. So we get to the end of the alley. He enters a door and brings out 2 chairs. Turns out, this is his mom's place. I begin to notice a small garden all around made from the plants that Bush picks up and brings back in his bucket. We light up. He tokes it first. He coughs. Ugh, this stuff is crap. You feed this to the sheep. Next story. My buddy and I were flying into Malaysia from Vietnam on the day that MH370 went missing. We were at the gate watching the whole thing unfold about it going missing. It was playing on virtually all the TVs in the airports. We were flying Malaysian Airlines. The tickets were expensive for a backpacker's budget, and they weren't offering any refunds. Told ourselves that maybe they'd be extra cautious now, so we're actually more safe. Definitely puckered up for 2 hours until we touched down. Next story. I was traveling by van through the mountains in the Philippines with a friend that is a really big guy. We came upon a checkpoint with soldiers searching cars. The guys were all wearing mismatched clothes and did not have any insignias on their uniforms or trucks. They searched all of our bags and were asking questions of the driver in Tagalog, which we did not speak. We heard them say, "American," and we're the only 2 Americans on the bus. They talked for a little while and finally waved us through. Later, we told the story to another American, and he said we had gone through a guerrilla-controlled area where Americans had been kidnapped for ransom lately. They all agreed they did not take us because of the size of my friend. I think we got really lucky that day. Next story. When I was a kid, my dad used to lead groups of college kids to Central and South America to build houses. One year, he decided that we should ride the chicken from Guatemala City to Mexico City. It's a long trip. We got to the border, and a soldier with a heck of a big machine gun got on the bus and looked around, saw that we had about 15 college girls on the bus, and then went and talked to someone on the phone. About 2 minutes later, a bunch of guys with machine guns got on the bus and informed us that all the males had to get off the bus and line up in front of it. I remember that we did it, but there was a heck of a lot of tension in the air as we did. Soldiers crammed into the bus. We waited. Finally, they got off the bus and we got back on, and away we went. It was a whole lot of nothing, really, but I remember my dad, the leader of the group, looking very pale and sweating bullets. Next story. Visiting Chicago from Seattle for a week. I booked an Airbnb with a gentleman understanding that I would be in a household with maybe 5 other people, as he did bunk beds in the room. The Airbnb was marketed as close to trains, decent area, and the house looked clean with many useful amenities. Upon arriving at the house, I find that it's run down, unclean, with only the sheets being changed by the maid. On top of that, many appliances were broken and there was no potable water. That was the first strike. Next, there were upwards of 15 people staying in the house. That bunk bed situation? He had 5 to 6 rooms with varying amounts of bunk beds squeezed in and no room to walk. No one in the house knew about the other rooms from the listing. I dropped my things off to explore the city and noticed the neighborhood was a bit sketchy but thought nothing of it. When I came back, there was one of the other guests sitting, waiting for an Uber Eats because he was too terrified to walk down the street and get food. Apparently, the night before I arrived, 3 people in the house were mugged while walking 5 minutes from the train to the house. That night, 8 of us sat on the floor of the living room. It seemed like a small dining area, but a lover's couch was in place with a broken TV there, and heard 2 separate occasions of about 10 gunshots a block away. I immediately moved to a hostel and argued with Airbnb and himself until I received my refund. Hey Mike, screw you. Too long didn't read. Ended up in an Airbnb in a bad part of Chicago where 3 housemates were mugged and 2 people on the street were shot. I did not stay another night. Yowza, that's why you don't judge a book by its cover. Sometimes it's even worse. I actually had a very similar experience staying in an Airbnb in New Jersey, where the house was gross, it wasn't terrible, and at least I was alone. But I was warned by some people you don't really want to walk down to the convenience store because it's a bit sketchy. And it's a long story, but someone tried to hit me with their car, and then 2 other guys tried to jump me, but then their girlfriend stepped in and said they were late for dinner, so they just left me alone. Bad times. Next story. I was working in a poor community in a small village in Romania, helping to build a small extension of a school. At around dusk, I decided to go for a short walk to a local shop for some water when a car drove past me. They suddenly braked, reversed down the road and stopped beside me, telling me to get into their car. They want to show me their cool things. Radios, cars, knives, ooh. They kept slowly curb crawling me and demanding I get in the car until I got back to my group, whereby they sped off. For the next couple of days, the same car, I believe, kept driving past and stopping outside where we were staying for 30-minute intervals several times a day. And I was staying a good hour away from the village. Creepy as all get out, and I still believe that it could have gone very badly. Next story. I have mostly traveled through Europe, and the only time I've ever really felt uncomfortable was when I was groped on the metro in Rome. We were packed into the car, and I felt a hand against my back. No big deal, I live in New York City. It happens. But then the hand slipped between me and the next person and around to near my stomach. Oh, maybe a pickpocket? Well, I had a money belt, so I was okay there. The hand grabbed my breast. We were so tightly packed that I couldn't turn around and I froze. I wanted to say stop or don't or anything at all, but in the moment every word of my Italian fled from my brain and I felt like a bucket of scalding water had been dumped over my head. The ride felt like it lasted forever. At the next stop, I forced my way out of the car and out into the fresh air. Rome is so beautiful, but it felt pretty dang ugly that day. Next story. I was staying in a weird hostel by myself in Barcelona. Woke up to a man staring at me while I slept. He was looking over one of those wood dividing screens that the shared room had. I pretend to still be asleep because I was afraid of what he would do if I moved or confronted him, and I didn't know if there was anyone else in the room. He stared for like 2 hours until finally my alarm rang because I had to take the early train. So I put all my stuff in my bag and I left the room. As I left, I told the owner, but I was really in a hurry and didn't ask what he was going to do with the guy. Next story. I was stalked by a guy while walking through the Tiergarten in Berlin. I was walking a path, enjoying the park alone. I saw this guy standing on the edge of the walkway, just looking off into the distance. I passed him, and when I was about 20 feet away, he turned and followed after me, keeping pace. I started to take a very meandering path, even leaving the park and entering again. The guy stuck with me the whole way. Eventually, I got to a place with some sharp turns and heavy greenery. I was able to lose the line of sight and put myself up against a corner. I had just been in Switzerland and had bought a pocket knife, so I opened the blade and held it inside my jacket pocket. I stood there, waiting, and then this guy comes walking out of the path, confused, obviously trying to see where I went. When he finally spotted me, he jolted, and since I had the drop on him, he played it cool and continued walking as if he hadn't followed me there. He stopped a little ways ahead, and I kept watching him. I wanted to confront him to find out why he had followed me, but since I was a visitor in their country, I thought better of it. Instead, I waited until I saw a big group of people leaving, and I fell in with them. He started to follow me again, but I finally lost him outside the garden. It unsettled me because to this day I have no idea why he was following me. I'm a guy, and at the time I was in my early 20s, pretty fit, and had a sour disposition. So it didn't seem like I was a prime mugging target, but maybe he thought otherwise? Next story. I witnessed a creepy old man groping a teenager on a crowded train in Osaka. The girl was just enduring it, and you can tell that she was holding back her tears. I whipped my phone out and started filming the guy, which made him use his other hand, which was blocked from my view, so I asked my guy friend to switch places with the girl. After that, on the next stop, the creepy guy got off. I asked the girl if she was okay. She thanked us, and her friends also expressed their gratitude. I think all of them, all teenage girls, were aware of the groping, but I read somewhere that it is not the Japanese culture to make a scene. I was aware that this kind of thing was prevalent in Japan, but I'm still shocked to see it in person. That creepy man and the poor girl's face will forever be etched in my mind. Next story. I was walking around in a town in Algeria. I wandered into a neighborhood and noticed there were hardly any people out. A little further, and there were literally no people out. I started to feel a little uneasy. But then I see an extremely tall man walking towards me, straight towards me, obviously with intent. He gets closer, and I see an older gentleman with a long gray beard and wearing a gray tunic. I stop. He comes right up to me and says in pretty good English, "You're not safe here. We need to get you off the street." I say, "Okay," and he says, "Follow me." We walk a few blocks, and we come to a door. He says, "Wait here a minute," and he goes inside. He opens the door again and invites me in. When I get inside, there are maybe a dozen men. They are all dressed in black, staring absolute daggers at me. Graybeard lays into them, starts shaking his fist at them, gets really worked up about it. Then one of the younger guys goes into the kitchen and brings out some tea and cookies and offers them to me. So I'm drinking tea, trying to smile, be polite, and one of the young guys asks me where I'm from, and I say, the States, and he starts talking about the CIA and stuff, and then I say, you think the CIA is bad here? Let me tell you about Central America. And then pretty soon everybody is warming up to me and we're laughing and talking crap about American foreign policy and drinking tea. After a bit of that, the older man invites me back to his apartment. He has a huge library. I gift him a book that I had finished, and he then tells me what had just happened. His little brother, who was one of the younger men, was the leader of a radical group. All the other men I had just met. He had overheard them getting ready to kidnap me, but he had shamed them for not being good hosts and for disrespecting him because it was his house. He said I would be safe from then on. Too long didn't read. Gandalf saves my life and got a copy of Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance for his trouble. Next story. Went to Honduras. Nearly drowned in a sea of children begging for money. Also, the wife and I went out into the ocean. She was on a paddleboard and I on a canoe. She couldn't paddle back in and was taking her out, so she had to hold on to me while I paddled us in. Good thing I was in really great shape at the time. The ocean is a dangerous mistress, children. Never turn your back on it. I don't know if the moral of the story was, be in great swimming shape as much as it is. Just don't go out in the water. Okay, it's scary. It's dark. I don't even know what's in there. Anything could be in there. The only thing I know that's not is me. Next story. This is a story of how to make every mistake possible and put yourself in way too much danger. I was in Panama with a friend. First night there, we went out drinking with a group of people. Me and a girl separated ourselves for some private time. Being drunk and silly, we were in the middle of a road. After a while, we decided to walk to a gas station and get some ciggies. It's a weird town, and the gas stations are on the outskirts. I'm inside, drunkenly fluctuating between Spanish, French, and English with the two attendants. Girl comes in and tells me that she has found us a ride back to her hostel. I pull myself into a white Escalade. Mistake number 1. The only people who drive Escalades in Panama are not the people whose Escalades you ever want to find yourself in. And I look at the driver. Imagine your cliché drugged-out 40-year-old former trophy wife. That is our driver. Oh, and she's crap-faced as well. Mistake number 2. Getting into a drunk foreigner's car. After some driving around, it becomes obvious that the woman is effing mental. She's doing drugs while driving. Respect where it's due. She didn't spill anything at all, but she is weeping constantly. Me and my gal pal are a little put off and ask to be let out. Driver pulls over, and gal pal, who was sitting in the front, jumps out. I'm just about to follow suit when the driver turns to me and says, I lost my kids today. Stay with me for a minute. This was 5 years ago, and I have grown up a lot since then, but drunk me decided that I was making a great decision by staying in that car. I'm on the edge of a blackout in a brand new town, and so, for a while, I don't notice that this drunk woman is driving me out of town. She makes a phone call, and then a few minutes later pulls the car to the side of the road. I'm not joking when I say the largest man I have ever seen gets into the back of the car with me. He is thugged out from head to toe. He has dead eyes and coldly stares at me without even saying a word. My drunk white Canadian self is sitting in the front seat. Through the liquor haze, my brain is screaming, dude, you are in Panama. No one knows where you are. You are alone with this terrifying human who hasn't spoken a word and a clearly effed up trophy wife drughead. So I pull out my phone, thinking now is a good time to get a hold of my buddy back at our hotel. Effing dead. My phone is dead. Mistake number 3. Never ever go anywhere without having a method of at least getting into contact with the outside world. So we are driving further and further out of town. The houses are getting big and spread out. We pull into a house that has Greek columns in the entranceway, and I'm thinking to myself that, hey, I've just been kidnapped. I walk into the house, and there sitting at the table is an American dude with a face scar going from above his right eye down to his lip. It's the angry kind of scar that jumps out at you. The woman who brought me out says she needs to deal with some stuff, and leaves me at the table with the Panamanian and the American. I'm thanking God that, despite this man's supervillain scar, I finally have a person I can clearly communicate with. The guy immediately starts yelling at me and cursing me out, though. He drags my butt outside with the Panama guy and starts telling me that this isn't the woman's house and that they aren't here or her friends. This is her ex-husband's house. He's convinced that she brought me here to F me in her ex's house. I quickly explained the weirdness of this whole evening. The American calms down a bit, and eventually we get settled and start chatting and even drinking a bit. I am in damage control mode and want the American guy to like me, so I am drinking and smoking and generally trying to be a fun dude. The American gets trashed, starts telling me crap that he probably should not be telling anyone, tells me he's a drug runner, places 1 kilogram's worth of drugs on the table to prove it, then pulls a handgun out of his waistband and puts an exclamation point on the whole statement. I'm crapping bricks on the inside, but the outside I'm all, hey, that's really cool, man. American starts telling me about his time in prison, tells me how he got his scar in prison, kindly offers to cut my face in a similar way to make a man out of me. I kindly declined, whilst thinking I was legit about to get carved up by a crazy American and a Panamanian. At this point, the Panama woman comes back out and tells me she needs to talk. We go outside for a cigarette, and she says the following. I know what you are. Oh? You're an angel. You're an angel who has been sent here to help me unalive myself and take me to the other side. What? Come with me. Let's go for a drive, just you and me. No, thanks. Take me to the other side. Okay, yeah, right. I'll be right back. just kidding. I run inside to the American, and I tell him what just happened. He offers to drive me home. I say, frickin' yes, but, don't let the effing Panama woman drive. The whole drive home, through deserted empty countryside, I kept one hand on my seatbelt and one on the other door handle. I expected every second for them to pull off the road and kill me. So, yeah, just about effed up in every way possible. Saw the American on the street a few days later, and he waved like we were bros. Needless to say, I noped the F out of there. Next story. I was walking to a pharmacy down a busy avenue in Morocco. It was the Feast of the King, so most people had off work and school, meaning the avenue was empty. Myself and 2 volunteers, all 3 young, white females, are walking and chatting when 2 guys on a motorbike pass us the opposite way. They drove over the median and pulled up beside us. The guy on the back gets off and walks toward us, then pulls out a machete from underneath his flannel. Girl 1 throws her purse, girl 2 throws her phone, and both go running. Guy comes after me and I wrap my hand around my purse, had my passport, wallet, and phone in, etc., and he holds the machete up to my neck. I say a few choice words to him in Arabic, essentially, shame on you by Allah, which is something I was taught by locals to keep the kids I was working with at an orphanage in line. Machete Man promptly appears to crap his pants. He goes after the dropped phone and purse, and I start running to the rest of the way to the pharmacy. I wind up there, and the other 2 girls meet me. People are starting to congregate. Some witnessed it while driving by, while others are trying to translate for us. A woman says she will drive us home after speaking with the security guard at the pharmacy. We agree and get into a minivan. I provide directions in Arabic, and the woman drives right past the house, blowing all the stop signs, ignoring traffic lights. It's then that we realize we are about to get kidnapped. One of the 2 girls reached forward, opened the door of the van, and we jumped out while it was moving. Too Long Didn't Read was held at Machete Point, then almost trafficked in Morocco during my first international travel experience. I've always felt pretty lame for not being well-traveled, but the more I read, the more I feel safer in my little voiceover booth at home. Also, super unfortunate for the other 2 girls. If you would have just spoke up a fraction of a second sooner, or if they didn't just throw all their money, purse, and phone at the guy beforehand, you guys would have been just fine. I mean, that wouldn't have stopped you guys almost getting trafficked and kidnapped, but there's a lot of hindsight 2020. The biggest one being, sounds like don't go to Morocco. Next story. I was traveling in Costa Rica with 2 flashy businessmen who were there to possibly purchase a gentleman's club. We were staying at the Radisson and asked the concierge to get us a cab to the club. We got in the cab and made sure that the driver knew where we were going. We were told it was a 10-minute drive. About 7 minutes in, I realized that we were not in a touristy part of town at all. The driver was whispering into his phone in Spanish, staring at us in the rearview mirror. I get an uneasy and look at my companions, who are clearly feeling the same way. We ask, hey, are we almost there? Oh, sí, un momento. More whispering. Yeah, that's not good. We are being set up. It's been 10 minutes, and we are in a sketchy residential area. I'm sitting in the middle, and my partner opens his briefcase and hands me a pen and tells me to stab someone if I need to. What? Yeah, he passes another pen to the other man. He's sitting directly behind the driver and takes his own gold pen and holds it to the driver's jugular and screams, "Take us back to the Radisson right effing now!" The partner snatched the driver's phone, hangs up. I'm just clutching the pen nervously. We did make it back to the Radisson. The jewelry was deposited into the safe in the room for the rest of the trip, and we eventually made it safely to the club. I was young and naive. I had my passport for 3 days at this point and didn't really get that we shouldn't have been traveling there with that amount of flashy jewelry. Next story. I went to Zambia in June and July of 2013. Part of my time there was spent in a very isolated village called Lubwe, in the northernmost province of the country. To get to Lubwe, you have to take about a 12-hour charter coach trip from Lusaka to the closest established city or village with any sort of infrastructure. To set the scene, this was the jankiest charter coach I'd ever seen. Cracked windows that were letting in cold air, bad smells because people were allowed to bring small livestock with them. Genuinely, no room to move because the undercarriage was overly stuffed with baggage, forcing pretty much everyone to bring their extra bags onto the bus. Deafening music that was played through the duration of the bus ride. A front door that was held closed by a towel being tied to the handrail on the bus stairs. The bus was so crap that we stalled 3 times before even exiting the station's loading area. This detail is important, so remember it. Our departure time was 2:35 p.m., and we didn't end up getting out of the bus terminal lot until 4 p.m. Other members of my trip were a group of some seasoned international travelers, along with some particularly soft, sheltered people who had every comfort in the world handed to them. The types that are scared of their own shadow. About 11 in total. All of us were uncomfortable, some more so than others, and they let that be known quite often. Well, we finally get out of the bus station and onto the road where we have to make a wide right turn. Zambia's traffic laws are fairly non-existent. People just kind of drive however they please. Our bus driver and conductor were fairly aligned with that mantra. Well, we pull this huge turn onto the street, cutting off a great number of cars when our bus stalls yet again. Many honks, whistles, screams, all thrown in our direction. Okay, whatever. The bus gets back to running in about 2 to 3 minutes. No big deal, right? Well, this is where it gets interesting. Among those we cut off was a small military force. I don't know if they were from Zambia, Zimbabwe, Uganda, the DRC. All I know is that they were really effing angry with our bus. Like 6 guys are in this Hummer and are flagging the bus to pull over as we get back up and running. We don't. This military group mounts the curb in their truck and starts screaming and waving for us to stop. Our conductor opens the door, lets them know we're going to continue on. Yeah, that doesn't fly with these guys. These guys dismount the curb, make sure our bus doesn't go any further. At this stage, our conductor, driver, and a coach hand get off the bus with a few other passengers, and a huge screaming match begins. Most of the passengers de-escalate and get back on the bus. Now it's basically our bus crew and the military guys. One of the military guys lifts his shirt and flashes a pistol as another shows off an AK from the back of the truck. The bus crew gets pulled onto the truck and proceed to have the crap absolutely kicked out of them. I had the unfortunate luck of being in a seat where I could see everything. But I look up for a moment and see 3 new guys get on our bus, and it takes off without any warning, leaving the old crew stranded and my group of 11 totally disoriented, white people in an effing panic. At this stage, it's getting dark, so none of us, including the leader who had been there a year before, knew where we were headed. So essentially, we're thinking we're on a 12-hour bus ride that's been hijacked and we're off to some sort of dungeon in the middle of nowhere, Africa. We eventually recognized that it was some backup crew from the bus as we made stops and passenger changes, but there were like 2 hours where I was worried that this trip had struggled so much to be on and it would end in an effing tragedy. Most stressful bit of travel in my entire life. And an essential detail I neglected to speak of when I told my mom that I'd be going back next summer. Next story. I was on a volunteer trip to Guatemala, and we took a day trip to see some Mayan ruins on a small island. My friend and I were looking for a bathroom, and several locals pointed us in the direction of one at the top of the mountain. We found a small building with no door and 1 toilet. My friend says I can go first and she will stand watch. I start going about my business when I hear my friend saying that I should hurry up, and then I hear a man's voice shouting something in Spanish about permiso. Out of nowhere, he barges in while I'm mid-pee, pointing a very large gun at me. He had some sort of uniform on, so he may have been police, but I'm not sure. I pull up my pants completely paranoid. I grab my friend to tell the man, lo siento, over and over and over, and run as fast as I can down the hill. He was shouting after us, but he didn't follow. Although nothing happened, I was terrified. And my poor friend still had to pee. Oh man, unfortunately, I know the feeling. There's nothing worse than somebody barging in on you doing your business, especially when you think you're in the privacy of your own wherever you are. I had one time where I pooped in someone's garden. Okay, it's a long story, don't ask. I wasn't trying to trespass, I was just not aware of my surroundings at all, and somebody came out, screamed at me, naturally, and I actually appreciated the help scaring the crap right out of me. So, free fertilizer and all, but that sticks with you. You gotta pay attention, okay? Next story. In Colombia around the elections this year, traveling from Pereira to Buga to visit the massive church there. Cops there don't really pull people over, they just sort of stand on the road and wave people to the side. So, they wave us to the side. Ask for ID. I have my US license. Didn't think to bring my passport. This was my second time visiting for a couple weeks, and I never brought it anywhere the first time. So my girlfriend's dad has his and her Colombian IDs. I break out my New Jersey license. Cops take it. I go back to talk. My girlfriend's dad tells us we're basically about to get shaken down. Cop comes back and says that we owe them 200,000 COP. That, and we will be able to pass. I'm like, F no, show them my police badge. Cops crap their pants like, oh, F, this was a bad idea. And they let us go on our way. In the 2-ish months I've spent in Colombia, that was legit the only bad experience I've ever had. The country, it really is amazing. Next story. Gypsies in Romania tried to, what I can only assume, sell me a baby? The woman, who looked like she was using since the day she first saw light, kept a one-sided haggling conversation in her own language, all the while shoving the tiny child at me. The swarm of children aged between 2 and 12 kept touching me, and what I can only imagine is appraising my clothes. This didn't really end until I had to raise my voice and go serious. I walked away and went back to the village where I was staying with a friend of mine at his distant relative's house. After telling our host the bizarre tale attempted human trafficking, they proceeded to inform me that the child was most likely stolen from somewhere else in Romania, another town most likely. It was apparently a local racket, reselling newborn kids to international tourists. What really gets me is the way in which they were telling the story as if it was business as usual. P.S. Hosts, where they're very kind and hospitable people, lead tough lives. Next story. 17-year-old me was in a public restroom near the Colosseum in Rome. I was taking a leak at my urinal where some dude rushed in to the urinal right next to me, looked over the partition at my junk, and he started self-pleasuring extremely violently. I had just started and had to go something fierce, so I was trying to cover myself up, like avoid his pleasuring, and also not get pee all over myself. Suddenly, the Roma police came bustling, and they grab old boy and start yelling at me, in Italian, very loudly. As I zip up and throw my hands in the air, I simply say, English and American. They demanded to see my passport and then hauled off the self-massage guy. 0 out of 10. Not a great experience. Next story. I went to visit Ukraine with my parents because they wanted to see the small villages where their parents were born. We have no family in the area, so we hired a guide to take us around since the country can be a bit corrupt. As we were driving around on a highway, we suddenly were stopped in traffic, literally middle of nowhere. The guide gets out of the car and takes a look, then quickly jumps back into the car, does a U-turn, and drives off, telling my mom we can't go to her mom's village. We ask why. He says it was some kind of Russian militant roadblock. This was during the whole Crimea thing. Next story. I was drunk as all get out in Tokyo, or a suburb of Tokyo. Anyways, I was having trouble getting back to the place I was staying at as nothing looked familiar, and I was way too sauced up to read the map properly. It being Japan, someone came to my aid to try and get me home. Problem was, he didn't speak English. I don't speak Japanese, so he ended up going to a restaurant to ask for help. When we walked in, there were 3 guys and a lady. All the guys were tatted up, which I knew was bad news. The guy immediately went to turn away, and the lady yelled at the guys, and they stood, grabbed him. The lady was pointing and yelling at me. I ducked the F out of there and started running as fast as I could as I heard the man that was trying to help me yelling. I ran through every back alley, ditched my flip-flops along the way so I wouldn't make a sound. I eventually found my way back home, then left for the north the next morning. I don't know, I highly doubt it was a Yakuza operation or anything like that, but I doubt it would have been good if I stuck around. Next story. Friend of a friend went to Jamaica with their parents and sister when she was about 12. They came back to their hotel room one day to find a guy in there trying to rob them. He stabbed the girl's dad. He lived though, but the guy escaped, and they had to go through a lot of family therapy after that. Next story. Got my phone pickpocketed on the subway in New Delhi. I was able to grab one of the thieves. He didn't have a phone. A mob of random commuters beat the living F out of him at the next stop. The police arrived and continued to beat the living crap out of him with cricket bats. We took him to the police station, told him to call his friend who had the phone. Friend wouldn't come. Police closed the door to their office with the thief, and I hear screams. I assume they're beating the crap out of him some more. I wait, and I wait. Police officer brings the kid into my room with a black plastic bag, throws the kid on the dirt ground, opens the bag, and pulls out my phone from a bag of curry. Yeah, he throws the curry on the ground and makes the kid eat it, though. He even gave him a spoon. Got my phone back, though. Next story. I was in Guatemala and traveling to Guatemala City. Apparently, there was a shortcut called The Trap from Antigua. It was absolutely insane. We plowed over rivers at about 45 miles per hour because bridges were out and were flung to the side of 1,000-meter cliffs, going about 80 made out of sandstone. My buddy passed out due to trauma. I asked after all of that why the heck we were going so fast, and the driver replied akin to, "It's a trap after the sun goes down." Now, I didn't fully understand. Was it vampires or something? He later stated while driving a bit drunk near sundown at 100 miles per hour, no monsters in the trap, only chicken bus, no lights, we would need to pull over and camp until daylight. Yeah, so apparently on this stretch of road, chicken buses run people off the roads at night without any care in the world. I was hesitant to believe it, but saw the carcasses of several SUVs like ours along the river of every road that followed. Next story. Was almost jumped by a drug dealer in the middle of the night in Peru for refusing to buy from him. Luckily, his other drug dealer friend recognized me from earlier in the day. The drug dealers in that area run a front of jewelry making, and I had bought a necklace from the Amigo jewelry maker / drug dealer during the day. By the way, the necklace was handmade by him as well, and it was a work of effing art. I was preparing for a real fight for my life, but the Amigo drug dealer put the other one in a serious headlock and yelled at him, told him to back off. Next story. My first night in Canada in 2014, I spent in a cheap hotel in Montreal. Pretty standard cheap hotel gig, right? The place smelled of smoke. I could hear people making noise in the other rooms, whatever. The place had an ensuite, free Wi-Fi, whatever. The place had an ensuite, free Wi-Fi, and a TV, and I had been traveling all day. While I was sleeping, the bathroom door opened and the light switched on. I was too scared to get up and confront the person. Besides, I was sleeping in the buff. I didn't want to unpack my PJs since I was continuing on to Quebec City the next day. Through half-closed eyes, I could see a person standing in the doorway, facing towards me. They stood there for about 25 seconds, then the light switched off and they disappeared. I checked my phone. It was about 2 a.m. and somehow I fell back asleep. The next morning, I checked out and got out of there, never mentioning it to anyone. There was a door from the corridor to the ensuite, but it looked like it had been blocked off, as though maybe there had been a cupboard there, and the bathroom was built over top of that. Definitely didn't look like the kind of door someone would use for normal access. It was about a quarter the size of a regular door. I never understood why someone would enter through there to an occupied room. Perhaps organ harvesting. Next story. When I was in Hungary, I was briefly kidnapped by a group of gypsies and managed to fall out of their car at a red light. Bashed up my arm and ran away before we left the city limits of Budapest. Ran until I found some guys. It was 4 a.m., but Pokemon Go was at its peak, so there were people wandering all around. Who called me a cab? I had to pay the cab $20 in Canadian just to get back to my hostel. I learned after that human trafficking can be pretty big around Eastern Europe, and the crap they were saying to me was scary, okay? I just remember repeating over and over that I promised I would hurt one of them if anything happened. That I knew I wouldn't get away, but I would kill one of them if I had to, and they would all laugh their butt off. If this gains any traction, I'll type out a more detailed account of what happened. It was madness. You can't start a story off with, you know what, I was briefly kidnapped by some gypsies. Thank the Lord you got away, and also, thank God for Pokemon Go that there was people about. I mean, 4 a.m., that's troubling territory to just be running around a foreign country. Luckily, you had people out there trying to catch, Squirtles and Charmanders. Those are Pokemon, right? Sorry, I'm not really familiar. I swear I'm a dweeb in so many things, but I never got a chance to get into Pokemon. Anyways, glad you're safe. Thank you, Mewtwo. Next story. I was 13 and went to Bali with my mom and dad. Most of the trip was blissful, but on our last day, we went to check out Kuta. I turned to look at a hawker selling something, I can't remember what now, and he was doing the hard sell. But then his friends all came around and started talking to me. One was saying, "What's that? What's that?" pointing at me. I was confused, but he ended up grabbing my breast and they all surrounded me. I was terrified and trying to get away. Luckily, my mom grabbed me and pulled me the F out of there. Effing terrifying. Next story. When I was in high school, I spent the summer on an exchange program in China with my best friend at the time, both female. The program was kind of lax and had kids from all over the world. They definitely did not keep a very close watch on us. One day we went to a shopping mall, and these two cute, unintimidating Chinese girls, maybe late teens, early 20s, came up to ask if we wanted to go with them to hang out with them or something. I thought it was kind of weird, but my friend was really excited by it. She wanted to meet locals and get more of a sense of the culture, and these girls seemed so sweet and innocent. They lead us through the mall and outside on the street, and the whole time the hair on the back of my neck was standing up. I just knew something horrible was about to happen. Finally stopped my friend, who also looked kind of freaked. We told the girls never mind and ran back to the mall. They looked disappointed, but they didn't try to stop us or anything, which at the time made me feel like maybe they really didn't have bad intentions. Now that I'm older and I understand a lot more about how the world works, I'm pretty much positive we were very, very much minutes away from becoming victims of human trafficking. It's honestly the closest I feel I've ever been in my life to be in danger. I still think about it a lot. Next story. 20 years old, made some friends while in Barcelona. Wanted to go clubbing with them. Take note that I'm not exactly the type who likes to go clubbing, but the friend I was traveling with didn't want to. Went out on my own from the hostel, a ways from the city center. Had fun clubbing until all the places shut down. New friends tried to convince me to hang out for longer, offering their hostel floor to crash on after. Pass. Tried to take the metro back, but that closed too. Got on a bus to get back to my hostel, unsure of where exactly to get off and with no knowledge of Spanish. Got off a couple of stops too early, got chased by some drunk person in the dark, had no clue what to do, so I clung onto a light pole by the bus stop, crying until the next bus came through. Eventually I made it safely back to my hostel and vowed never, ever to go off on my own like that again. Next story. I was in Iceland and was driving around the ring road with a friend. We stopped for the night at a big cabin called the Landmine Hotel. I had a horrible nightmare while staying here that I was being pulled underwater in some weird Icelandic lake. It was one of those really realistic dreams that caused me to jump up, gasping for breath. Anyway, we continued the drive the next day, but my friend insisted on stopping and hiking up a beautiful waterfall called Sistrafoss. We pulled over, hiked up to its water source, which was a lake exactly like the one in my nightmare. I mentioned that I had a terrible dream about this same lake. We got close to the water's edge, and I saw a sign that told the history of the lake. It told how a medieval monastery used to be there and was moved after nuns kept going missing in the lake that they bathed in. An eyewitness of the time said she saw a hand offering golden shoes to the nuns and would pull them under once they got close enough. The lake was called Sistravatten. I had the same exact nightmare again at the next stop. I just wanted to get as far away from that island as possible after that. Next story. I was in a small fishing town in Mexico with a class. We were living with families in the town so we could learn about their culture and learn to speak Spanish. I was sitting on the curb waiting for my host family to come out of the grocery store, and I had a homeless man come up and sit next to me. He told me his entire life story, and I thought it was a genuine interaction. Not to my surprise, though, he proceeded to ask me for money, and after saying no and trying to walk away, he grabbed my ponytail and pulled me to the ground. The father of the family I was living with walked out, saw what was going on, ripped the guy away and beat the crap out of him on the street. For the record, I have never felt safer anywhere that I have traveled. Everyone in that town cared for each other, and I have gone back on many occasions, and I hope to one day live there. Next story. I was backpacking through Southeast Asia this year and ended up in a nightclub in Vietnam. Now, if you've ever backpacked in Vietnam, you know that most people follow the same route, so you bump into a lot of the same people along the way. This particular night, I didn't even want to go out, but a girl I was traveling with met a bunch of guys that we had met a few weeks prior in a different city, and we said, F it, we'd all go out for a few drinks, just in case we never saw each other again. Catching up, talking, having a good time, and suddenly it's 4 a.m. I'm about 10 kilometers from my hostel. Cool, I'll order a grab off my phone. That's Uber in Asia. No drivers at the time. Okay, I'll go to the bar and ask for a cab company to pick me up. They don't have any numbers for me to call. So here I am, a very pale, blonde, 5'3" girl drunk in the street at 4 a.m. in Hoi An with my equally drunk, pale, blonde friend. We knew it was too far to walk and also too dangerous. There weren't any other backpackers left in the area, so we didn't know what to do. A group of Vietnamese men on motorbikes pull up and ask us if we need a lift home. They're obviously not taxi drivers and have such a creepy vibe about them, but we didn't know what else to do, so we negotiated a price and got on the back of the bikes. Fortunately, they did drive us to our hostel, but then tried to rob us while dropping us off. I didn't even realize it at first when the driver reached over and took my money out of my fanny pack. I was just upset at him for taking the wrong amount. Without even thinking about what I was doing, I ripped my money back out of his hands and a screaming match started with all 4 of the guys coming at me, while my friend was yelling at us in a mix of English and Vietnamese, getting super aggressive, saying how we owed them. Thank F our hostel had security. They heard the yelling, came outside to us immediately. The guys took off on their bikes pretty quickly, only getting the money that I had agreed to pay. The security were awesome, honestly, and very nice. They warned us how people get hurt from fake taxi services and to be more careful next time. I'm super thankful they were there, and honestly can't believe how stupid we were that night. Next story. Had some dudes pull a gun on me in Vegas when I refused to buy drugs off them. I said I'd go to an ATM and get some cash out. They watched me walk up to the ATM, then I ran while pretending to use it. They chased me for a while, but eventually I got away. Looking back on it, if I wasn't drunk, I would have just given them the money. I don't know what the F I was thinking. I'm an Aussie and was absolutely plastered and probably using the word idiot a little too much at the time. Next story. I was in Madrid with my family and we went to a cafe to eat. Everything was fine. I finished my sandwich and was sitting on the counter waiting for them to finish when a woman comes up to me, tells me I remind her of a friend. I smile and nod, as I didn't have anything to say. She asks my name and I tell her. Then my family starts leaving and I say goodbye to her. At this point, she was just staring at me the whole time. We go outside to catch a cab, and she follows us. I get inside the cab, and while we wait for the traffic lights, I see her standing outside, watching me with this crazy look on her face. She was also reading the taxi's license plate, seeming to try to memorize it, and it kind of freaked me out a bit, to be honest. I spent the whole ride expecting her to follow the car and show up at my hotel to kill me. Next story. Oh geez, I typed up a response about a trip to Costa Rica, but had forgotten an even creepier story. Back in 2000, my wife, sister, and daughter were on a train from Paris to Portugal. The overnight portion was in Spain, and we ended up sharing a sleeper car with a nice couple from New Zealand. Around dinner time, my sister and I checked out the cafe car. There was a table full of Spanish dudes, and they seemed pretty drunk. More on that later. When we went to sleep, the other guy and me slept in the top bunks. As we awoke in the morning, my sister said to my wife, "Did you hear someone try entering our car last night?" I remember locking eyes with the Kiwi guy as we both processed what she said, both of us reacting like, wait, what? It turns out he and I were the only ones, well, not including my 5-year-old daughter, who hadn't heard someone frantically trying to open the door that night. I jumped down, checked the door, which was locked. I then went out into the passageway and found blood on the walls. Not like horror movie amounts of blood, but a significant enough amount that I was very much like, what the F? It looked like someone had been cut pretty bad and was trying to find help, or maybe a bathroom or something. Imagine you were on a moving train while your hands were covered in blood, and you were moving from car to car while trying to maintain your balance. Everywhere you'd have to touch, there would be blood. I ended up going to the bathroom and grabbing a crapload of napkins and using those to open the doors and such. No one explained anything. No one cleaned anything. Just another day on the rail with blood all over the walls. My best guess was something happened with the drunk dudes. A fight? An accident? Something. But who knows? We were a couple hours out from our arrival in Portugal, so we stayed in our compartment until the last second, then got the absolute heck off that train. Next story. A friend of mine went on a trip to Thailand, staying at a relatively inexpensive hotel. In the middle of the night, my friend was violently woken up by hotel staff and moved to a different floor. Turns out, the hotel was gassing the rooms on that floor to deal with a bed bug issue. The hotel accidentally gave guests rooms on the floor that they were gassing and didn't notice until they killed a couple. It just kept getting worse and worse. I thought it was going to be about bed bugs. Then I thought it was just going to be about the gases, and then somebody died. Don't travel, I think. I don't know. Do we have any scripts about travelers of Reddit who found some of the best things while going abroad? Let's read those. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me. That concludes our stories of very, horrific and troubling tales from outside the safety of our homes. If you guys have any more that you would like to share, feel free to drop those down below in the comments. But if you also have any more optimistic and positive ending ones, we like to read those too. In any case, again, thanks for being here, and we will see you in the next one.